The White Sox next opponent is a fellow peer in being bad, the Miami Marlins, and they recently DFA'd Tim Anderson. It's very sad to see what has happened to the former face of the White Sox franchise, or is it? Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown. Part of the Fansided Network, you can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Turn on those notifications as well, and also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. Now, normally I like to discuss the good and the bad in every series the White Sox recently completed, but considering it was unlikely they were going to win a series against Cleveland, it was nice to see them at least get one win. Lenyn Sosa's on a tear with 5 multi-hit games. Luis Robert Jr. and Andrew Vaughn, for the most part, were good. And otherwise, besides getting flat out beat yesterday, 8-4, and a bad error by Paul DeJong on Tuesday and some issues with Michael Kopech on the mound, there's not a ton of bad to discuss. But what has been bad is watching the decline of Tim Anderson. He's gone from the face of being hashtag change the game and being recommended as a potential face of the league to being DFA'd and possibly watching his MLB career end. And I'll discuss the downfall of TA and the parallels for the franchise's decline, and if it's sad to see or not. Then the Sox face the Marlins, who have former fan favorite Jake Burger on the club, and let's discuss if he would have had any impact on the current White Sox team, and if the Sox already won the trade that they made to send Burger to the Marlins last year before the deadline or not. And finally, I'll go over the keys / things to watch for in this weekend series. And this episode is brought to you by this episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Now, nothing has gone well for the White Sox since that ball landed in an Iowa cornfield after Tim Anderson hit that dramatic walk-off homer in the Field of Dreams game in 2021. Although, little side, derailment there. I agree with Ozzie Guillen. He was on 670 to score. That it feels like folks make that homer out to be like the greatest dinger in the history of the franchise, when it really ranks behind Paul Konerko's World Series Grand Slam, Scotty Pods' walk-off in the 2005 World Series, and Jim Thome's solo blast in the blackout game in 2008, which I still don't think that ball has landed. I think it's somewhere orbiting Saturn right now. I mean, I remember he just crushed it. But seriously, it feels like 3 generations ago that Anderson had that fantastic moment in a season where the Sox were supposed to start many years of contending for the World Series. And instead, the window started to close in 2022 and slammed shut in 2023. And that sort of coincides with Tim's decline in play. Made the All-Star team in 2022, but injuries limited him to just 79 games. And then injuries and personal issues absolutely robbed him of being a productive hitter in 2023. The personal issues are one reason some folks are giving him no sympathy. I don't want to get too much into them because I'm not here to judge a person. I do, from what has been reported or speculated, his marital problems were at least not related to domestic violence. Even Anderson admitted when he met with the media, I believe he admitted this when he met with the media when he was at Wrigley Field. Those issues affected him. Kind of being the face of the franchise affected him. And, those are self-inflicted. That is why some in the White Sox Twitter community did not want to give him any grace. And, I've seen on the White Sox Twitter community that, the franchise sort of coddled him. So, is it sad to see him decline this bad? Or is it just inevitable and self-inflicted? And it doesn't help that one of his last images with the Sox is Jose Ramirez knocking him out in an on the field brawl where Anderson tried to throw hands and he just got absolutely UFC KO'd. But for a couple of seasons, this man was the co-face of the franchise with Jose Abreu. I mean, it is sad to see what has happened with a lot of the core players. I mean, at Shy Sox fan Mike, who writes for Sports Mockery, he tweeted this out at Shy Sox fan Mike. 2021 White Sox ALDS Game 1 lineup of the year in the year 2024. Tim Anderson, unemployed. Yoan Moncada, always hurt. Jose Abreu, unemployed. Yasmani Grandal, completely washed. Luis Robert Jr., good. Eloy Jimenez, always hurt. Gavin Sheets, meh. And Emmanuel out of baseball. Larry Garcia in AAA. A lot of parallels there in terms of you see like how quickly these guys that the Sox depended on to have a contention window just declined so quickly. And Anderson, I mean, think about it. He won a batting title, made 2 All-Star teams, brought that entertaining swagger to the South Side before Tony La Russa policed that out. Last season, TA had a slash line of 245, 286, 296, and 1 home run. He had an OPS plus of 61. And being absolutely terrible in the field, you add all that up, and that's why GM Chris Getz declined his $14 million option to let him go. And with Paul DeJong hitting home runs and building up his trade value, I I would actually take DeJong over Anderson, even though my bias before the season led me to question if it was a mistake to not bring back TA. I wrote about it a few times, and I'm gonna, because I wanted to see if TA could get his value rebuilt, and I loved watching Tim Anderson. But with Paul DeJong hitting home, this year things got even worse for Anderson after he signed with the Marlins for 1 year. Had a 214 average and a 463 OPS with no home runs. His OPS plus was 30. And this is a guy that won an AL batting title. And now he can barely hit the ball. And Yoan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez, better hope things work out differently for them, as they're not likely to have their club options exercised for next season. They're going to probably have to do the 1 year prove it deal, just like Anderson did. And Anderson didn't prove it. Now, by all accounts, TA was good in the clubhouse, where there were reports last year that he had some run-ins with his teammates like Yasmani Grandal. Now, to be fair, the report was Grandal causing the trouble and Anderson sort of either sticking up for himself or the franchise. But if you see how he went from batting over 300 for 4 consecutive years, I mean, in 2019, 335 for the AL batting title, to watch his production being that bad, you wonder if he's cooked. I mean, I've seen players, you probably have seen players have a career year and then return back to the mean or decline so badly. But TA was showing through 4 seasons that he was a very good baseball player, and now he's just absolutely a shell of himself. He went from the face of the game to having probably no value to 28 other teams, and he can't field, and now he can't hit. Maybe a contender will take a flyer on him. I did write about that but I did write on Southside Showdown that this could be it for him, based on the fact that if he can't hit, he provides no value to a team because he's a terrible fielder. Now, it'd be nice for Anderson to take the rest of the year off, let his body recover, and try a comeback as a non-roster invite next year for some team. But you can tell something in those knees there just has to be more to the injuries that he's suffered in his knees and his legs that has robbed him of his ability to drive the ball. And I mean, not like he was a major power hitter, but he could hit double-digit home runs, and now he barely slugs the ball at all. And the Sox, I'm sorry to say, folks, do not need to be mixed up with TA anymore. I know there's some folks that were out there saying, bring him home. First, after they trade DeJong, they need to get a good long look at Colson Montgomery. But man, it's been tough to watch both the Sox and Anderson fall off this badly. Well, another fan favorite is on the Marlins, Jake Berger. He was controversially traded by the White Sox before last year's deadline. Let's discuss if he would make a difference on this year's White Sox, and if the White Sox won that trade already. Next, Locked On White Sox. This episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, beds, and bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city. And after the All-Star break, the Sox are going to Kansas City. Head out to check out the Negro League Museum, get some barbecue, and check off visiting another rival stadium off your list. The Texas Rangers have a relatively newish stadium. Head on down to Arlington and cross off that stadium as the Sox will play a 4-game stand there. Use Booking.com to find a place to lay your head. If you plan on going to those places, from hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for summer travel. This MLB season, the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or Booking.com in the Booking.com app. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day. It's bringing the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox road trip continues as they start a 3-game set against the Miami Marlins tonight. First pitch is at 6:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. I just always ask you to make me your first listen. All right, Jake Burger would not make a difference on the White Sox this season if he wasn't traded before the deadline. Yep, I'm going to die on that hill. And the main reason, I doubt he would be on this team. His trade before the deadline last year represented the dysfunction of Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn running the front office. It was Kenny who reportedly traded Jake Burger to the Marlins for pitching prospect Jake Ader. But with Getz in charge, he wanted to upgrade the defense. And with Burger being a negative defender, I have a good feeling Getz would have traded Burger even if it was even if it was just a matter of time that Yohan Moncada would get injured, which happened. The Sox are getting actually better production from Gavin Sheets' bat this season than the Marlins are from Burger. And the Sox are, getting bad defense from Lenny Sosa, but he's on a hot streak right now. So while I loved Jake Burger and his family, it was also fun to have around the team, his wife helping him with his swing. It was great to see. I don't miss him. He would not have an impact on this year's club. And you'd be like, what? How can you say that? Well, Burger's slash line is 217, 254, 352 with 8 dingers. He's a -3 defensive run saves, and he's a -4 outs above average. So let's see. Gavin Sheets, who's emerged as at least a decent player with Burger gone. And when Eloy went on the IL at DH, Gavin Sheets has a 233, 329, 391 slash line with 7 homers. Burger's a -0.3 F4, while Sheets is a 0.1 F4. Sheets is 106 WRC plus versus Burger 72. And again, why am I comparing these two? It's probably because at the start of the season, if Burger wasn't traded in the offseason under Getz, it's still on the team, he might have gotten the first crack to replace Eloy and then eventually Moncada. And yes, it would have been nice to have Sheets and Burger's power bats in the lineup. But as you can see, Burger might have gotten in the way of Sheets at least emerging as a competent hitter. Or at least Sheets is proving that he's the better hitter right now than Burger, especially how Sheets, he can get on base. Jake Burger barely gets on base. And Lenine Sosa, who's been the place filler for Moncada at third, he's on a heater. And his slash line is 245, 281, 367 with 3 home runs. He's a -2 defensive runs saved and a -1 outs above average. And if the Sox didn't trade Jake Burger, they would not have their 10th best prospect in Jake Eater. Now, last year it did look like the Marlins were going to easily win this trade with Burger having an 860 OPS in 53 games for the Fish, who made the wild card. But now that he's come back down to earth, would you rather have a pitching prospect with high upside who, if he makes it to the big leagues, even as a reliever, will be very cheap for 3 seasons for a team that should avoid repeating, uh, using huge financial, using a significant portion of their limited financial resources toward bullpen's arms? Now, I know Burger is obviously relatively cheap right now because he's not arbitration eligible until next year. And I know that was another reason why people were criticizing the Sox for moving Burger. But Yohan Moncada was not going to have any trade value. He's always injured. Burger at least brought you back a promising arm. Now, if Eder doesn't make it to the big leagues, then yes, the Marlins win the trade. But if he makes it and reaches his ceiling as being a good starting left-handed pitcher or as floor as a reliever, I think then the Sox win this trade so long as Burger's playing like this. I think this is what you're seeing. This is what Jake Burger is going to be. It's going to be a decent power bat, probably be a starter on a lower tier team in terms of talent like the Marlins. And he would not make a difference at all for the White Sox this year. Because as you're seeing, he's not producing well at the plate. Not at least what we saw last year when he was such a fan favorite. Well, enough about former Sox on the Marlins. Let's discuss what to watch for / keys in the series next. Locked On White Sox. Here on Locked On White Sox, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. And you know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. And after I graduated college, I did work a job in banking collections to pay the bills. And trust me, the IRS is no joke. Your bill collector may threaten action that they cannot go through with for various reasons, but the IRS can because they're usually the ultimate lien holder. So when the IRS threatens actions, they mean it. So if you have unfiled taxes, reach out to Tax Network USA. With over 14 years of experience and an A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. And whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And be sure to mention Locked On White Sox at checkout, and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? A lot of things that I'm buying. And also, you're probably buying a ton again this summer, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all of your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours, and you could save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, and more. And it's time you joined over the 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONMLB. When you register, just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. And the White Sox road trip continues with a 3-game set against the Miami Marlins tonight. First pitch is at 6:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Lockdown White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter. Hope you had a good 4th of July. Mine, I was able to hit a parade, but I didn't start to feel great. When I don't have COVID, took the COVID test, but I got something with my throat going on. So I spent the rest of the day, basically crashed out, starting to feel a little bit better. Throat's still a little scratchy, so if I sound nasally, it's because I believe I'm fighting off a cold. All right, well, the White Sox take on the Miami Marlins in a 3-game road set, and this is a big start tonight for rookie pitcher Drew Thorpe. He was supposed to start yesterday, but his start got pushed back to tonight. And the reason why it's a big start is Mike Clevenger is making a rehab start soon. You and I have seen the Sox, for some strange reason, think Clevenger has value and should be showcased to the league for a trade, despite teams passing on him twice on the open market. Now, Thorpe has had 3 solid to strong starts in the 4 that he's made. But if he has a start like he did in Arizona, the second career start where he just got absolutely rocked by the Diamondbacks, and Clevenger shows he can return, it would not be surprising to see the Sox demote Thorpe in favor of Clevenger, which would be absolute franchise malpractice. Thorpe is the future of the starting rotation. He has ace potential despite the lack of velocity, and he needs to be in the bigs instead of throwing in Charlotte, especially if the Sox are going to trade Garrett Crochet. Speaking of Crochet, you and I might only have so many starts to watch him in a White Sox uniform. He throws Saturday afternoon, so just appreciate it. Just appreciate every time he steps onto the mound for the White Sox. Although baseball insider John Morosi had a good point on 670 The Score, with every day that passes and Crochet is still in the White Sox, he might not be moved. And his thinking is a contender wants to maximize how many starts they're going to get Crochet for. Because eventually, as the season winds down, his workload will have to lessen, as this is his first year as a starter, and you don't want to put too much stress on his arm. So as everybody keeps talking about, if he goes to a contender, you get a couple starts from him in August, and then you might have to, start ramping him down. So then that way you can deploy him either as a opener or as a high leverage bullpen guy. Or, you sign him to the extension that the White Sox should sign him to, then you just make him a starter, according to Bob Nightingale. Because again, the White Sox are going to let are going to let Garrett Crochet walk. Not just, the main reason isn't the logical reasons, because there are logical reasons. It's got the highest trade value. You need way more pieces than what you have with Crochet. I get the logic, even though I think you should build a rotation around Crochet. But again, the main motivation, and I've talked about it on a couple of shows, is money. Sox don't want to pay Crochet. Jonathan Cannon also makes a critical start on Sunday. He's only had 1 rough start since returning to the majors, and that happened against Detroit. But he's had 3 really good starts. But again, if he struggles, is he going to be the one that goes down to AAA for Clevenger? because you could say, well, the Sox might do a 6-man rotation. And they could. They're sort of doing that right now because if they keep Crochet, the talk is that they're not going to skip any of Crochet's starts. They might push it back. So they could do a 6-man rotation, but my fear is they're going to send Thorpe or Cannon down to showcase a bum. And yeah, that's what I think of Mike Clevenger. I don't think he's that good anymore, and he's shown that. And even if he does have decent numbers like he had last year, nobody wants him except for the White Sox. It would just be nice if the Sox got rid of Clevenger or delayed his return to after the trade deadline. Because if you do need someone to eat innings for the rest of the year and you don't trust Nick Nastrini and you want to give some of those pitching prospects like Kai Bush and Mason Adams some more innings and maybe bring them up in September, so you need somebody to eat some August innings, fine, because the Sox hopefully will have traded Chris Flexen and Eric Fetty. But right now, Jonathan Cannon and Drew Thorpe should not be looking over their shoulders. I mean, he just keeps being this dark cloud around the team. Other keys / things to watch for is hopefully Luis Robert Jr., Andrew Vaughn, and heck, even Lenine Sosa. They can stay on the heaters that they've been on. And finally, can the Sox, for the second weekend in a row, make a fellow peer in bad their get-right team? The Sox obviously made the Colorado Rockies their get-right team as they took 2 of 3 from them last weekend. Now, that was at home. This one's on the road. And the Sox have just won one road series and tied another. But they have a chance with the Miami Marlins losing 4 straight. And maybe the White Sox, again, the White Sox have a little bit more elite talent in Crochet and Robert, whereas the Marlins have already punted on the season. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back on Monday to go over the good and the bad in the series the Sox had against Miami, along with the key / what to watch for in the next series, and the Minor League Monday report. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at Locked On White Sox, or follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And feel free to leave comments about today's topics regarding the downfall of Tim Anderson, not missing Jake Berger, and what to watch for / keys against Miami. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X formerly Twitter at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On Sox. Email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com, and have a great day. See you Monday.